Now, today we will discuss about the advantages of using DBMS. So here there are different advantages such as controlling a redundancy, restricting unauthorized access, providing persistent storage and program objects, providing storage structure and search techniques for efficient query processing. Next, providing a backup and recovery, providing multiple user interfaces, representing complex relations among the data, enforcing integrity constraints, permitting interfacing and action using rules. Now, let us discuss these advantages one by one. First is controlling redundancy. So first we have to understand what is a redundancy or redundant data. Now, in database, the data is in what happens, there will be different areas where the same data is used again and again. So that is what we can call it as a repetition of data. Now, or it can be also called as a duplication of records. Now, duplication of records can waste the storage space. Now, there are techniques called as data normalizations, which can be used in DBMS software to reduce the redundancy. About those things we will be discussing in a separate chapter. Now, next is restricting unauthorized access. When multiple users share the large database, so each user should be given access. So that is what we call it as a login. So for every student or every authorized user, a separate login is provided to prevent any unauthorized access to the database. Next is persistent storage for the program object. The persistent storage of a program object in data structure is important function in a database system. It is called as a traditional database system often suffered from so-called impedance mismatch problem. Hence, the data structure provided by the DBMS were incompatible with the programming language structure. So, it is very important to provide a persistent data storage. So, exactly how the data needs to be stored. Next is providing a storage structure and search techniques for efficient query processing. Now, here the database management system provides execution of queries and updating the data and efficient data querying, that is insertion, deletion and updation, needs to be provided for the database, and it will be provided by the DBMS software which is used. Next topic is providing a backup and recovery. So every data what we have entered, it needs to be backed up. Sometime what happens, you might lose data due to hard disk crash or any other reasons. So we should have the facility to make sure that the database or a data whatever we have stored, it can be recovered. So that is possible only if there is a backup facility in the database. So database backup is also one of the key features in DBMS. Next is providing the multiple user interface. About this one we have already discussed in the characteristics. So different users will be has to perform a different tasks, and that is managed by providing a different or a multi-user interfaces. Next is representing a complex relationship among the data. Now here, sometime what happens, the data may have a complex relationship among them, and about that we are discussing in the future class. I don't want to discuss much about this one. In those cases, how the data will be retrieved, how the data is updated, so that needs to be managed, and that is what we can call it as a representing a complex relationship among the data. Next is integrating in or enforcing integrity constraint. Now the question comes is, what is the integrity constraint? Integrity constraint means applying some rules. Integrity rules means, so there should not be duplication of data, or it cannot be kept empty, or so such rules can be applied, and for that different constraints we have, such as primary key, not null. so many constraints we are discussing. Constraints means here certain rules what you apply on the data. So that is what we can call it as a constraint. So such integrity constraint can be not just integrity constraint, some other constraints also applied. Next is permitting interfacing and action using rules. Here some database system may provide a capability for defining deduction rules for interfacing new information from the stored database facts, such as system called as a deductive database system. So actually, sometimes what happens, we keep for example, price of the item is placed into the database, and once the quantity is given, automatically it has to calculate the final amount. Means if say you are allowing or you are purchasing some product, say any product, say you take a biscuit, so for 5 rupees, it's a price of the biscuit. Then you purchase it for purchase a 10 quantity, so automatically it has to calculate 50. So such action rules or such things can be applied. Apart from that, some additional implications are also there in the database approach. That is potential for enforcing standards. Database such as DBA to define and enforce the standard among the database users in a large organization. Means DBA, that is a database administrator, who manages all the data, or he is responsible for giving so here one concept you have to understand here. Exactly, we have to understand what is the role of a database administrator. Database administrator can enforce some standards. So you may ask me, sir, what is the standard? Here standard means, so you want to restrict somebody from changing the data. You don't want to allow somebody to delete the data. So in those cases, or even you don't want somebody to change the data. So the DBA can give only the selection right for certain users in certain data. In certain data, he may allow the users to modify. So that is what we call enforcing the standards. It is possible with database management. Next is reducing application development time. Whenever the software is developed, so the time of development needs to be reduced. So creating means the development of the software or a database should not take much time. Even data retrieval, printing of reports, it should not take more time. So that facility also should be provided. Then the flexibility. So sometimes you may need a change in the structure of the database based on the requirement of the organization. The organization for which you are developing a database or a software, they may ask you for changing some databases. Means they may ask you to add some fields or add some records. So in those cases, the flexibility should be in such a way that it should be easily allowed to change that data or modify that data. So such the structure should be designed in such a way that it should be flexible to change the data when or where it is needed, and it should not affect any existing stored data. So it's very important here to know that. Here you see, whatever the database structure is modified, it should not affect the stored data and existing program. This is how it should be managed. That is one of the feature or a key feature, or you can say characteristics of the database management system. Next is availability of up-to-date information. So up-to-date information is essential for any. So here there are different types of processing, transaction processing, then like that there are different processing systems are there. So it is becoming necessary for every transaction processing application, such as, here you can see some examples are also given, such as reservation system, banking databases, where there will be concurrent users. Concurrent means at a time if multiple users are using. The best example for this concurrent users is the live streaming what we are doing. So in that case what happens is, when we just stream the data, multiple users can directly view these videos at a time. That is what we call concurrent users. So here, when this database is managed, such as you consider reservation system. So there will be a lot of issues which will come into the mind. So I don't want to discuss much of those. So when the reservation system is used or a banking database is used, just imagine one example we will take here. So what will be the issue? Means here one concept is mentioned here, that is a concurrency control. So why this is necessary we have to understand, and even the recovery subsystem. On that we are discussing about one separate chapter called as the transaction management in this particular DBMS subject. Now let us go with one practical examples. If we go by these approaches or additional database approaches what we are discussing, we can take certain examples and we can go through that. So in a reservation system, if you take, suppose assume that we are reserving a ticket for the Bangalore. Just imagine, one example we will take. Suppose we are reserving a ticket for the Bangalore. Here what happens is, so we will see, we will check, so seats availability, right? So what happens, this particular app or data app or whatever the interface is provided for you, or even the web page, so ultimately whatever you enter, that is stored in certain database. So what it will show when you just view the data, or when you view the app, or when you view the web page, there suppose assume that seat number 3 is empty or it is available. So what happens, because of the concurrent usage facility, or at a time multiple users can access this, somebody may be trying the same seat from the other place also. So here there will be issue. What both can see that this particular seat is empty. But what happens, suppose assume that my transaction is completed. Then when he tries to insert the record, the seat will not be available. He will get a message that okay, the seat is booked or full. Like that he will get a message. You cannot update. So such why this is happening? How this is happening? That question will come into the mind. And when one row is already inserted, it is not allowing other person to insert. That is possible because of this concurrency control. So what is a concurrency? When a data is used by multiple users simultaneously, that is called as a concurrent use. What happens when somebody is updating the data, other will be in hold, or once his updation is completed, other can access. But here a lot of issues will be there. That I just gave you an example of reservation. Both can see the seats are open, they can reserve. But once somebody is inserted, the other person will be viewing the old data only, that it is empty or it is accessible, or you can reserve that seat. But what happens, as soon as he tries to insert the record, he will get the old data. So many issues are there. So here it is very important for a database to give up-to-date information. Means as the database is modified, the another user should get the information. Okay, this seat is already booked, like that. Okay, so that is one of the very important approach we have to concentrate. Next is economics of scale. Actually, the DBMS approach permits this consolidation of data and the application, such as reducing the amount of wasteful overlap between the activities of the data processing persons and different projects or department, as well as redundancies among the applications. So these are the concepts which will be directly responsible to the economy. So economically it should be cheap. So that is also one more important